The OnePlus 8 Pro is OnePlus's most expensive device to date. We have this really strange long-looking box which they've used for a little while now, and it is seriously expensive. Take a look at the top right-hand corner. What is interesting though is that if you do buy it in China, it is pretty much $140 cheaper than the global starting price there. Opening things up in the box over here, we have a SIM ejector tool, some little pamphlets here that OnePlus usually give us with the phone, and we have a silicone case, this time slightly different, with a never settle logo on the back, which looks absolutely stunning. Moving on from that, we have a USB Type A to Type C cord, and we have USB 3.1 transfer file speeds, which is great. We also get a Warp 30T charger in the box. This is not changed from previous generation chargers, so nothing has increased in this department, though we do have a wonderful big 4510 mAh battery. There's a bunch of wasted space in the box here, though I guess you get what you're paying for. This is the glacial green variant of the phone. This is the only variant that you can get in the OnePlus 8 and the 8 Pro together. This version comes in the starting point of 8 gigs, 128 gigs of RAM, and like mine, I have the 12 gig, 256 gig version. You can also get it in this. It's personally my favorite color of the bunch here, though that blue color also looks quite striking. We have our little mute switch over there, which is always great to see. I'm surprised no other phones have adopted this as well. We have a volume rocker on the left-hand side. It's disappointing that it's not split, such as its sister company Oppo. And at the bottom we have a Type-C cable port over there, as well as a downward firing speaker and a SIM ejector slot here, which supports dual SIMs but no support for micro SD. At the back we have a wonderful OnePlus logo over there, which looks stunning, but the thing that protrudes the most is the camera. When you pair it up against the S20 Ultra, the S20 Ultra does have a much bigger camera module, but it sticks out just as much. It sticks out just as much as the Mi 10 Pro, slightly more than the OnePlus 7T, and a lot more than the Oppo Find X2 Pro. The backs of these phones are starting to look pretty much the same across the board here, so I guess it depends on your color and design preference. Slapping on that never settle cover that comes in the box, it looks pretty great, and I like how they've left the cutout there for the mute switch and not try to put something funny over it. Though I did manage to get my hands on the Sandstone Cyan bumper case over here from OnePlus. This is an official standard. It gives it like a sandpaper feel at the back. It feels absolutely awesome in your hands, and I definitely recommend getting it. Once again, cheaper in China as compared to the States, pretty much $10 cheaper there. In the front we have a 6.7-inch AMOLED 1440p resolution display with HDR10 capabilities. We also have 1444 nits, which is what was said by DisplayMate, with 120Hz refresh rate panel and 240 touch sampling rates, which is always great to see. We have big curves on the left and right of the panel over here. Some people don't really like that. We have a whole bunch of features for this display over here, though some apps cannot actually be used in full screen. That's strange, and I have tested it out. Vibrant Color Pro is a new thing, as well as motion graphics smoothing. I'm not a big fan of either one of them, though the option is there if you like it. Opposed to the other flagship phones of 2020, phones are starting to look pretty similar, and brightnesses are starting to look similar as well, so it pretty much comes down to brand preference if you ask me. We have this QHD Plus panel over here, 1440p with 120Hz, and unlike the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra, we can use them both together, which is great. 60Hz on the left hand side here, 120Hz on the right hand side. I've used it together, well, separately, and then plug the clips in together. 25% speed over here. You can see how many more frames you can actually fit into the screen when shooting at 120Hz, though it does fluctuate when using certain apps, so you cannot always be stuck to 120Hz. 10% speed here, it looks absolutely phenomenal. Look at that. It is incredible, guys. If you have not tried 120Hz or anything more than 60Hz, I definitely recommend that you go to the store and test it out. There is a big difference. Though when it comes to gaming, this is dead trigger too. We have ultra high, and it says 120 FPS there, though the OnePlus 8 Pro locks it at 60. I have tried dropping things to 1080p. I've also tried a whole bunch of different things with the phone, and I cannot get it past 60 frames per second. Hopefully OnePlus starts supporting more games that do support this. If you guys know of any other games, let me know, and I'll be sure to do an FPS test on those games very soon. Bullet Force is another awesome game over here, first person shooter. Also has a no cap. I actually managed to get 144 frames per second on the Red Magic 5G, though the OnePlus is capping it it at 60 no matter what I do, even without an FPS cap. This really sucks, but things still feel smooth and they look absolutely stunning on that QHD Plus panel. At the top left hand corner, we have a punch hole in the display, 16 megapixels f2.5 selfie snapper with EIS, and it is capped at 1080p 30 frames per second. When you do use bokeh effect using the selfie cam, things look great, but there is quite a bit of edge detection that I did notice. I'm going to do a little bit of a crop here, 120% crop, and you can actually see the edge detection on the side of my head there. Yo, what's up guys, this is Technic recording a 1080p 30 frames per second video on the OnePlus 8 Pro. The OnePlus 8 Pro is completely locked at 1080p and limited to 30 frames per second when using the selfie cam. Let me know what you guys think of the audio and video quality of the OnePlus 8 Pro. At the back of the OnePlus 8 Pro, we have a 48 megapixel IMX689 sensor. This was seen on the Oppo Find X2 Pro as well. We have a 48 megapixel IMX586 ultra wide sensor, 8 megapixel telephoto, and 5 megapixel color filter lens. OnePlus, what were you thinking? We also have 4K at 60 frames per second and 1080p at 60 frames per second. The interesting thing is that we have cinema mode at 4K 60 as well, which is great. Using a crop on the 48 megapixel ultra wide, things don't look that great. And when we go to the bin shot over here using 4:1 binning, we get a 12 megapixel shot, which looks slightly worse using the ultra wide count as opposed to the 48 megapixel. Using the main 48 megapixel raw sensor, it also doesn't look too good cropped, but it looks slightly better when binning down the shots. Moving on to the telephoto, we have 3 times optical over here, 5 times hybrid. Things already start to get blurry when using hybrid, 10 times digital over here, and moving into 20 times digital, things get really fuzzy. We have 30 times digital. This is the max zoom that you can do. I do not recommend using this at all. We also have a bokeh effect here. Things look pretty nice and smooth, and bokeh on my little friend Yoda here looks just as great. Using that color filter camera, it's pretty much what we would be doing with After Effects after taking our photo using third-party apps, but I guess OnePlus decided they want to include it here. Here is 1080p at 60 frames per second using the main camera. They actually incorporate optical image and electronic image stabilization together to get smoother stabilization, and I must say it does work. Things are super smooth at 4K 60 frames per second here as well. Here is 1080p 60 frames per second ultra wide, which is always good to see. And after we shoot after that ultra wide, we have a 4K ultra wide here once again. Using electronic image stabilization and that ultra wide camera, things are still pretty smooth. Almost 4K 3840 by 1644 pixels here. We can use cinema mode, which is shot at 21:9, and using it with ultra wide looks absolutely fantastic, running at 4K 60 frames per second. Not many phones can do this at 60 frames per second, or let alone 4K 21:9 full screen. 4K 30 frames per second using super stable on. Things look really bad. I'm sure this will get fixed with a software update. Talking about software, we have a screen off clock here, though it is an ambient display, so you have to touch it in order to see it. We also have dark mode over here, which looks pretty great, and you can use first party apps to see what that's like. We also have accent color and all the other customization options that you have come to love on previous OnePlus devices. We have a different variety of fingerprint animations here, though I really do like the fact that they give you the option to not use one at all. It is pretty snappy, as well as the facial recognition, and comparing to the Find X2 Pro, the Find X2 Pro seems to be slightly quicker with less animations used with facial recognition as well as fingerprint sensors. There is a lot of screen wobble when on a flat surface because of that massive chunky camera bump over there, and in the software department we do have nice navigation gestures, though it sucks that they have ditched the old school pull up from the bottom left and right corner of the screen to go back and forth. That is something that Samsung still have, but the biggest change here is that we have reverse wireless charging, and more importantly we have wireless charging, and we have that 30T wireless charger here right with me. There is bedtime mode. I'm not going to be using that here for the test. Here is the box and the price at the top right corner. Once again, you'll notice that it is a lot more expensive in the global market as opposed to the Chinese market for the exact same product. I'm not quite sure why OnePlus are doing this, but I guess exports, imports, prices do start to rocket over there. We have a little fan inside the charger over here. It doesn't get too loud, and we're going to be comparing it to its older brother, the OnePlus 7T. It does have a much smaller battery at 3,800 milliamps as opposed to the OnePlus 8 Pro's 4,510 milliamps, but they're both using 30-watt charging, except the 8 Pro is using Warp Wireless and the 7T is using Warp Wired. After 10 minutes, we have 18% on the 8 Pro and 24% on the 7T. Moving on to 15 minutes, we have 25% on the 8 Pro and 36% on the 7T. Remember, we do have a smaller battery on the 7T over here, so at the end of this test, we will be comparing how many milliamps we can get per phone per minute. We'll also be checking out percentage per minute as well, so make sure you stick around. If you guys are enjoying this video so far, make sure you hit that subscribe button and smash that notification bell so that you get notified as soon as any of my videos drop. Moving on to the 45-minute mark here, we have 67% on the 8 Pro and 94% on the 7T, almost clocking out over there. We're using the ambient displays as well as airplane mode over here so that we don't trickle much power through the devices while doing the test. After just 58 minutes, the OnePlus 7T knocks out from 0 to 100% in just 58 minutes over there, and it has done a good job. Most of the time it gets about an hour and 28.9 degrees Celsius of heat here. After the hour mark, we have the OnePlus 8 Pro at 87%, 13% shy of the 7T here, but it does have a much bigger battery. With the OnePlus 7T, we have 65.5 milliamp hours per minute over here, so it is not doing a terrible job, though many other phones out there do a better job. After an hour and 20 minutes, the OnePlus 8 Pro knocks out on that wireless kicker over there with 100% in an hour and 20 minutes. 35.8 degrees Celsius is quite hot for the phone, and it's doing quite a lot lower than the 7T at 46.4 milliamp hours per minute as opposed to 65 on the 7T. We have the Xiaomi Mi 10 Pro on the left hand side and the Oppo Find X2 Pro on the right hand side with the OnePlus 8 Pro in the middle here. Here are the hardware specs. Feel free to hit pause there, and we have updated the software on all three devices. We have a 90Hz display on the Xiaomi and 120Hz on the two phones on the right hand side. We're going to use their respective performance mode enhancers on all three devices here to run an AnTuTu benchmark score. Here are the battery percent, degrees and CPU degrees Celsius at the start of the test, which we'll compare shortly at the end of the test. I've sped this up a lot and I'll bring you guys a more detailed one later on. Highest battery drain here, the Oppo Find X2 Pro with -5% here. Though it does have the smallest battery of the bunch, it did get hotter, adding 10.3 degrees Celsius over here, where the OnePlus only added 6.8 degrees Celsius in the battery department, which is quite impressive to say the least. In the CPU department end over here, the OnePlus only added 6 degrees Celsius here, making it the coolest of the bunch, and the Xiaomi Mi 10 Pro added 10 degrees Celsius over here, though it is quite a bit cheaper. In first place, we have the Oppo Find X2 Pro with 605,000 points. Second place, the Mi 10 Pro with 591,000, and the OnePlus 8 Pro in dead last with 580,000. Not much of a difference between the three devices here, though the best GPU goes to the Xiaomi, the best CPU memory and user experience goes to the Oppo, and the second best memory is the highest award for the OnePlus 8 Pro. The Oppo being 100% here, the OnePlus 8 Pro is 4.1% worse, and the Xiaomi is 2.4% worse than that of the Oppo. The OnePlus 8 Pro is a stunning looking device. It is probably my favorite colored device I've ever seen in this wonderful glacier green color. They've really got the symmetrics right of this phone, and it looks absolutely stunning. They have finally delivered a true flagship for our eye candy. It has a wonderful Fluid QHD plus 120 Hz panel over here, but it just sucks you cannot use it with everything. Though I must say the clarity of the panel is absolutely stunning, especially with over 1000 nits peak brightness. Though there are many other phones out there for a very similar price that I would recommend over the OnePlus 8 Pro, and you could actually save half your money and get one of these two guys. But if your mind is set to OnePlus and you want that wonderful Oxygen OS stock Android experience software out the box, then I couldn't recommend a better OnePlus than the OnePlus 8 Pro. Guys, this is Technic, and I'll see you in the next one.